So Sundays are known as Church of the Long Run, and for 2 Sundays in a row I took 2 different pairs of Max Cushion shoes out of the box, and on both Sundays they took me to church. Today we are talking all about those 2 shoes that would end up slotting into my shoe rotation in very similar ways, and specs wise have a lot of surprising similarities. This is going to be my comparison of the Brooks Glycerin Max and the Asics Gel-Nimbus 27. Hi everybody and welcome to another video. My name is Matt and this is What Matters to Matt, and yes, that's right, on today's video we are going to be comparing the Asics Gel-Nimbus 27 to the Brooks Glycerin Max. Now, to get that disclosure out of the way, Brooks Glycerin Max is a shoe that Brooks sent me for the purpose of review, and the Asics Gel-Nimbus 27 is a shoe that I picked up with my own hard-earned cash. However, nobody is telling me what to say in this video. My thoughts and opinions are definitely my own. In fact, the Asics Nimbus 25 I bought about 2 days before the Brooks showed up on my doorstep, so I was really excited to get these both on the long run and do this full comparison for you guys. I've had a chance to run in them a little bit more to put my final thoughts together, but here we are. Let's get into it. And if after watching this video you were thinking you might want to give either one of these shoes a try, click on the link in the description down below or head on over to vmzfit.com, where you're just going to find videos and links to products including shoes that my family have tried and tested. Now, these are affiliate links, and although they may not impact your purchase, they do go a long way to supporting this little channel that we are trying to grow. Now, when it comes to the Nimbus 27, this has been a shoe in the Asics lineup for a very long time. But if you are a long-time fan of the Nimbus, you might remember that Asics made some big departure from what we can expect out of this shoe just not that many iterations ago. Way back in the Nimbus 25, the Nimbus became not just your premium daily trainer, but also their take on a max cushion shoe. You no longer see that gel on the outside of the shoe. They've put some in there, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. They've also pushed the midsole stack well over 40 millimeters. Now, with Brooks over the last couple of years, we have seen a slightly different approach to their staple lineup of shoes. Rather than reinvent the Glycerin, which I think is on its 22nd iteration, they developed a completely new line of running shoes. They kept their more traditional lineup to cater to loyal fans of their line that might be looking for something a bit more familiar and traditional, and created a whole max cushion lineup. We've got the Hyperion Max, we've got the Ghost Max, and now we've got the Glycerin Max. So as usual, we're going to go down through the upper, the midsole, and the outsole, and ultimately I'm going to let you know if I had to pick up just one of these shoes, which one would I be picking up? It is a hard choice to make, but we'll get there. So let's start with talking about this upper, and both the Nimbus and the Glycerin Max have an engineer mesh upper that honestly gives you a pretty amazing amount of comfort. Both have a fairly traditional lacing system, not trying to do anything too fancy, and that's something that I really do appreciate. Now, the tongue is probably the most noticeable difference in the upper, and the one place that I would actually give the nod to the Asics. So ever since we had the Asics Nimbus 25, which I've got right here, we've had that stretchy type tongue in the shoe, and I love the stretchy tongue. It's not too bulky, it's gusseted, it's just really comfortable, and it just disappears on the foot. There's no lace bite or anything to do with this. Not too much padding, just the perfect tongue. If this could be in every shoe, it would. Now, the Glycerin Max has a pretty puffy tongue, and there is not a gusset in this, and in most cases I'm not a big fan of a puffy tongue, and I love having a gusset just to keep the tongue from moving around, but can't say that I've had any issues with the padding or am missing the gusset at all. Now, there is one comment that I got in my first impressions of the Glycerin Max. I'll put the link to that video up top here, where someone mentioned that the tongue of the Glycerin actually moved around enough on them that they had to return the shoe. It just shifted too much and made it uncomfortable. Both shoes have lots of room in the toe box, plenty of structure around the heel, fit true to size, at least in my size. I wear a men's size 13. I've got a thumbs width at the end of the shoe, and again, they just work. So if I had to give the nod on the upper, I am going with the Asics Nimbus 27, but both of these shoes fit really well. And one last thing, I guess, on the upper that's really not a concern of mine right now would be breathability. They're okay. Nothing spectacular, but they're okay. All right, let's move on to talking about the midsole. Now, if we move on down to the midsole. They, again, both have elements that largely are trying to do the same thing and do it in slightly different ways. And I would actually use either one of these shoes for easy runs, recovery runs, or even some runs where I could pick up the pace if I really needed to. They're fine with doing strides, not something I would take out for an all-out workout. But the Nimbus gives you the stack height of 43.5 millimeters in the heel and 35.5 millimeters in the forefoot for an 8 millimeter drop. And the Glycerin Max gives you a stack height of 47 in the heel and 41 in the forefoot. So you're getting 3 more millimeters in the heel than you are in the Asics Nimbus 27 in the Glycerin Max. And you're getting more to that in the forefoot, and you really do feel that. So for my foot and the way that I run, after running in both of these shoes back to back, it actually feels like the Nimbus is lower to the ground, and technically it is. But a couple of years ago when I was running in the Nimbus 25, if you were to tell me that that would feel like a lower stack shoe than something else that I was running in, I would have thought you were absolutely nuts. Not a lot of ground feel in either one of these shoes. Now, both shoes have a system that attempts to provide you with a softer, more shock absorbing feeling in the back of the shoe and a slightly more responsive ride up front. The Nimbus line is holding on to the idea of having a small amount of gel in the heel to provide that shock absorption, and the Brooks, they're using their DNA-tuned midsole, which tweaks the foam so that you're getting a softer midsole in the heel and just a little bit of a firmer midsole in the forefoot. Now for me, this one definitely goes to the Glycerin Max. I don't notice the gel in the midsole of the Nimbus, and I'd be really curious to have this same shoe and just get rid of that gel in the heel and just leave me with FF Blast Plus Eco Foam and see if I could even notice that gel in the heel. But with the Glycerin Max and my running and my gait cycle, I really think I do feel that DNA tuned going to work. Now when I mentioned that the Glycerin Max is soft in the heel, it's not squishy marshmallow soft, because although you do sink into the foam, it really does have some resilience and rebound to it that it feels pretty comfortable on the run and gives you lots of shock absorption, but you don't get lost back there in the heel. The reason why I mention that is when I think of a shoe that has all this foam underfoot and it being engineered to be soft in the heel and firmer in the front, my mind has me thinking that I'm going to get stuck in the heel, sink so much in the, it feels almost like it's got a negative drop, and it's really hard to transition to the forefoot, but I don't really get that from the Glycerin Max. What I get is a shoe that feels so comfortable on landing, rolls through nicely, and transitions well into the forefoot and onto the toe off. Now that's probably not all due to the DNA tuned midsole, it probably has something to do with the forefoot rocker as well, but either way, it just feels slightly more responsive and easier to pick up a pace than the Nimbus. Last note on that midsole, the DNA tuned is a new midsole material that I'm hoping to get some good miles in the Glycerin to see just how that midsole foam holds up over time. I already have put a pretty good test in the Nimbus, having put over, again, 600 miles in this guy, and I'll put a link up top here somewhere if you want to see that long-term review on the Nimbus 25, and I know this is going to hold up to lots of miles. So the one question mark that I would have, if I had any question marks with the Glycerin, is just how that DNA tuned midsole, just because it's a new material. There's no indication that it's going to be a problem, but it's new, so you never know. But if I had to give the nod to either one of these midsoles, I'm definitely going with the Glycerin Max. It just feels more fun. So lastly, let's talk about the outsole and the Nimbus. This is probably my least favorite part of the shoe. Since I've been running in both of these, there have not been a whole lot of days where you just get all your time spent on clear roads. Cold, slush, snow, and ice have been most of my runs lately, and likely will be for the next couple of months. Asics is using their hybrid rubber here, and honestly, it does not seem to grip all that well. It's not been a huge problem because, again, the vast majority of the runs in either one of these shoes is going to be just your slow, easy runs with the odd occasional pickup, but it doesn't really give me any sort of confidence inspiring when I'm out there running across any ice or any wet conditions. And there's also this slapping sound that you get out of the Nimbus, and I wondered whether that's something that's just due to it being so cold here and the rubber firming up, but it seems like when I hear from other reviewers that they're also mentioning that this can be a very, very loud shoe. In fact, it was actually something that the first time they were running this shoe, that the person I was running with they were probably paying close attention to the shoe because I had a new one on my foot, but they did mention just how loud this seemed to be when we were out running together on those quiet trails, just getting that long run in. The rubber on the bottom of the Glycerin Max seems to grip the surface just a little bit better, and in all conditions, I don't get as much noise of the shoe when I'm running, and it's not a quiet shoe by any means. All that rubber and just how wide and big and chunky both of these shoes are, neither one of them are going to be really quiet, but it is quieter compared to to the Nimbus. Now I can't comment on the durability of the outsole of either one of these shoes. That'd be unfair for me to do, but I would say given the hardness of the rubber on the Nimbus and the amount of rubber that's on the Brooks in terms of just how thick that rubber is, both of these will probably do well for as many miles as you want to put into them. And it is something that I'm going to look back on when I do the 100-mile review in either one of these shoes, and I'm definitely going to get there in both of these pretty quickly. So again, I would pick the Glycerin Max when it comes to my favorite outsole between the two shoes, but if we are talking about durability for a sec, it is a little bit of a question mark. Most of that, just like with the midsole, comes down to it's been a shoe that I haven't had for that long and I don't have any prior experience with. So I'm not sure with the amount of exposed midsole here whether that's going to get chunked up. I have no reason to believe that it is, but it is something that we will look back when we get to that 100-mile review. And with the Asics Nimbus 27, we also have some exposed midsole, but it is still, again, that FF Blast Plus Eco. And when we look back at the Nimbus 25, we ran tons of miles in this in so many different surfaces, and that never really got chunked up at all. So I'm not concerned about the Nimbus 27 at all either. And I'm actually not concerned about the Glycerin Max, but I can't tell you 100% whether the outsoles are going to last on these shoes or not. This one I'm pretty sure, this one probably. So with the upper nod going to the Asics, the midsole, and the outsole nod going to the Glycerin Max, I guess I'll come right out and say it that if I had to choose just one, I'm probably going with the Glycerin Max. There are very few shoes out there, and this might be the first one for me that's in that max cushion category that offers so much comfort, so much stability, and somehow still feels fun to run in. Both shoes do the whole protective, stable, comfy shoe thing really well, but the Glycerin Max does all that and also brings a huge smile to my face every chance I get to take it out there on the run. Value. This is what makes this so difficult for me. The Glycerin Max comes in at more expensive at $200 US and $250 Canadian, while the Nimbus 27 comes in at $165 US or $215 Canadian. But even with that, if I'm forced to pick just one of these shoes, I'm personally still saying that you get better value out of the Glycerin Max. The harder question to answer would actually be if the price of the first and only Glycerin Max would be better choice to make over a discounted Nimbus 26 or Nimbus 25, which are both really solid shoes. I'm probably still picking up the Glycerin Max, but it does become a harder decision to make. Now, have you tried either one of these shoes, or do you have another max cushion shoe that works better for you? Let me know in the comments down below. Or maybe even better, do you think that a whole max cushion thing is completely unnecessary and you just steer clear of buying anything with this much cushion altogether? And I think that debate over whether you need this much cushion in your shoe has been something that I've been back and forth on over the last few years. A couple of years ago, I would have said, no, it just makes this shoe, especially with my size 13 foot, just too clunky, just too much shoe underfoot. But they've done a lot over the last few years when it comes to the rocker, when it comes to the geometry of that midsole, when it comes to just the midsole material that they're putting in these shoes. They've done a lot to actually make it a viable option and made it a little bit more exciting and not just a big clunky shoe underfoot. Again, both of these shoes, along with my family's website, will be in the description down below if you want to check them out. My name is Matt, and this has been What Matters to Matt, and ultimately, what matters to me most is my family. I'll see you guys in the next video.